The champagne glass felt heavier than it should have. Carolyn Ross watched the golden bubbles rise, each one a reminder of how far she'd fallen. 6 months ago, she'd been presenting blueprints to city councils. Tonight, she was balancing drinks at the Kim Estates Gala, her architecture degree tucked away with her pride. The silk screen behind her rustled. She stepped closer and heard the voice that would shatter everything. "Just sign the papers, Jun. She's a temporary complication." Chairman Kim's voice cut through the music. Carolyn froze. Through the gap, she could see her fiancé Kim Jun sitting across from his father. "The Hanul Corporation won't finalize the merger without a family alliance," the chairman continued. "You get $70 million and the sole division. End your experiment with the architect." The tray in her hands began to shake. June lifted the folder, fingers steady. "When should I tell her?" "Tonight. Write her a generous check. She won't make a scene." "She won't." June's laugh made Carolyn's stomach turn. "She's been useful for my image, but she always knew she was dating up." The words seeped in slowly, poisoning 3 years of memories. Every dinner where June had corrected her. Every dismissed dream, every compromise she'd called love. She'd been a project, a phase, a stepping stone. The tray slipped. Crystal shattered against the floor. Carolyn spun toward the service exit, vision blurring, heart wild. 3 steps, and she collided with something solid. Strong hands caught her waist. She looked up into sharp features and dark eyes that saw through her uniform to the woman crumbling underneath. A scar cut through his eyebrow, matching the ink disappearing under his collar. "Careful," he said, accent thick. "The floor seems determined to claim victims tonight." Carolyn jerked back, but his grip steadied her. His gaze dropped to where tears streaked her makeup. "I need to leave. Running won't change what you heard." He tilted his head, intensity anchoring her spiraling thoughts. "But staying here will only give them satisfaction. You were listening. I was waiting." His thumb moved against her vest. "For you to realize that men like my nephew don't deserve women who build cities." Nephew. This was Sang-woo Yun, the uncle the Kim family never mentioned. The disappointment. "Let me go," she whispered, but didn't pull away. "After you answer one question." His voice dropped. "Do you want to walk out as the woman June discarded? Or as someone who makes him regret every word?" Carolyn's breath shuddered. The tears stopped. Something cold crystallized in her chest. Not rage, not grief. Something darker that tasted like the champagne. Expensive, bitter, intoxicating. "What are you offering?" Sang-woo smiled, promising ruin. "Marry me. Not for love, not for romance. For revenge that will burn so hot, June will spend his life forgetting the taste of ash." Behind them, footsteps approached. June's voice, already shifting to that condescending patience. Carolyn looked at the stranger who held her like she was precious rather than disposable. She thought about her empty bank account, her failing firm, 3 years wasted trying to fit into a world that never wanted her. Blueprints gathering dust monuments to dreams she'd believed were too big. Want to know what happens when a woman scorned meets the most dangerous man in the room? Keep watching, because this is where the real game begins. She met Sang-woo's dark eyes, and made a decision that would either save her or destroy her. "Yes." His smile widened. Behind them, June's footsteps faltered. In that moment, standing in a service hallway with her world in pieces, Carolyn Ross stopped being the woman who waited for permission to take up space. The transformation had only just begun. The study smelled of old leather and wood smoke, rain hammering against windows that overlooked a city that suddenly felt very small. Carolyn stood just inside the doorway, her server's vest a costume she was desperate to shed. Sang-woo moved to a bar cart, pulling down a crystal decanter. "Sit. I'd rather stand. You'd rather run." He poured amber liquid into a glass. "But you won't, because you want to hear what I'm offering more than you want to protect what's left of your pride." The words settled into her chest like truth she'd been avoiding. Carolyn crossed to the leather chair deep enough to swallow her whole. She didn't sit. She perched on the edge, spine rigid. "I know who you are," she said. "The family doesn't talk about you. They talk about me constantly." Sang-woo handed her the glass, their fingers brushing. His were warm, scarred along the knuckles, old marks, faded. They just used different words. Exile, disappointment, the one who chose a different path. Carolyn took the bourbon to have something to do with her hands. The first sip burned, rich and smoky. What path? The Kim family built their fortune on construction. Clean money, legitimate contracts, city council handshakes. Sang-woo settled across from her, close enough that she could see silver threading through his dark hair. But every empire has a foundation no one wants to examine too closely. Mine runs the operations that keep their hands pristine. Operations, information brokerage, private security, debt collection for people who can't go to banks. His eyes never left hers. I manage the gray areas between legal and illegal, the spaces where contracts are signed in blood instead of ink, where leverage matters more than law. Carolyn's pulse quickened. You're telling me you run organized crime? I'm telling you I run an organization that operates outside traditional crime because we never break laws ourselves. We just know everyone who does, and we trade that knowledge like currency. He leaned forward. Chairman Kim built towers. I built networks. June thinks power comes from buildings. I know it comes from knowing which buildings have bodies in their foundations. Why tell me this? Because if we're going to be partners, you deserve to know what you're marrying into. Sang-woo set his glass down. Your firm is failing because June blocked your permits. He convinced the zoning board your plans were structurally unsound. The glass trembled in her hand. How? Because I know the man he bribed to file the complaint. I know the offshore account he used. I know everything June has ever done wrong, and I've been collecting evidence for 3 years. His voice dropped. I make it my business to know what destroys people. Carolyn's throat tightened. 3 months fighting that denial, drowning in appeals. Why? Because June represents everything I hate about our family. The entitlement, the casual cruelty, the belief that brilliance can be discarded when it becomes inconvenient. Sang-woo stood, closing the distance. You were the 4th woman he sabotaged. The others didn't interest me. But you? You're different. Different how? You build things that matter. Community centers, affordable housing, structures that serve people instead of profit margins. He didn't touch her, but she felt the heat of him. I want to help you destroy the man who tried to make you small, and I want you to help me take everything he believes is his birthright. Carolyn stood, refusing to be loomed over. What exactly are you asking for? Marriage, a contract. You become Mrs. Yun, and I fund your firm. Every permit June blocked gets mysteriously approved through channels I control. You get Brooklyn Commons back, plus capital to expand. In exchange, you use your architectural expertise to find structural flaws in June's real estate empire, the legal vulnerabilities I can exploit to dismantle him piece by piece. You want me to be your weapon. I want you to be the queen on the board. Sang-woo's hand ghosted along her jaw. I move in shadows. You build in sunlight. Together, we're unstoppable. Carolyn's pulse thundered. This was insane. Marriage to a man who ran criminal networks disguised as security consulting. A man the family whispered about with fear instead of affection. But June's laugh still echoed. She always knew she was dating up. How do I know you won't use me the same way? Sang-woo's hand made contact, thumb tracing her cheekbone. Because June saw you as something to elevate himself with. I see you as the force that will bring him to his knees. There's a difference between using someone as a prop and arming them as an equal. Rain grew louder. Lightning flickered. This is business, Carolyn said. Nothing more. For now. But his gaze suggested otherwise. I want my firm's name on every building. Not hidden. Not credited to some man. Done. Final approval on all architectural decisions. No interference from you or your networks. You'll have complete autonomy. And when this is over, when June is ruined, and you have what you want, I walk away clean. No entanglements with whatever shadows you operate in. Sang-woo's smile was dangerous. If that's still what you want when the dust settles, you're free to go. But Carolyn? He stepped closer. I don't think you'll want to leave once you see what we can build together. Carolyn extended her hand. Deal. He looked at her hand, then lifted it to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles that sent electricity racing up her arm. We have a war, Carolyn Ross, and I promise you'll enjoy every minute of watching his world burn. She should have pulled away, should have recognized the danger in partnering with a man who traded in secrets and operated in moral gray zones. But she didn't. And from the heat in his eyes, Sang-woo knew exactly what he'd found. A woman angry enough to dance with devils if it meant revenge. The penthouse occupied the entire 42nd floor. Carolyn had been living here for 3 weeks now, and the cognitive dissonance was exhausting. By day, she worked in her new office, legitimate, legal, her name on the door. By night, she returned to a fortress owned by a man who'd casually admitted to running organized crime. She stood at the window at midnight, tapping the glass with her knuckle. The sound was wrong. Glass rang when struck clear, crystalline. This made a dull thud, dense, swallowed, bulletproof. Her pulse kicked up. She moved to the air vent, examined the grate, biometric locks. She couldn't see into the ductwork, but she'd bet her degree there were HEPA filters, maybe CBRN protection. This wasn't paranoia. This was preparation for war. Admiring the ventilation, Carolyn turned. Sang-woo stood in the doorway, tie loosened, jacket over his arm. He looked like any other executive returning from the office, but she knew better now. The windows are bulletproof. The vents are filtered for chemical attacks. The entire floor is reinforced beyond standard building code. She crossed her arms. This isn't a home. It's a bunker. It's both. He crossed to the bar cart, poured whiskey without asking if she wanted any. He knew she did. 3 weeks of observation had taught him everything about her habits. Who are you afraid of? I'm not afraid. Sang-woo handed her a glass. I'm prepared. There's a difference. Prepared for what? You said you run information networks. That you broker secrets. But people don't bulletproof their homes because they're worried about corporate espionage. Sang-woo was quiet for a long moment. Then, sit down, Carolyn. I'd rather stand. Then stand. But listen. He took a long sip of whiskey. The networks I run have value because they operate between legal and illegal. I know who's bribing who. I know which politicians have offshore accounts. I know which corporations are cooking their books. That knowledge protects people, my clients, my family, myself, and makes you a target. It makes me untouchable, because everyone who might want to hurt me knows that if I die, every secret I've ever collected gets released automatically. Dead man switches, encrypted files distributed to journalists, prosecutors, foreign intelligence agencies. His eyes were hard. I don't need violence. I have something better, mutually assured destruction. Carolyn felt ice settle in her stomach. You're telling me you have dirt on everyone. I'm telling you I have insurance. And that insurance is why June will never physically harm you. Why Chairman Kim tolerates my existence. Why I can operate in spaces that would destroy normal people. He set down his glass. The bulletproof windows aren't because I'm afraid someone will shoot me. They're a statement. A reminder that I've thought 3 steps ahead. She should have been terrified. Should have packed her bags and run back to Brooklyn. Back to her small apartment and her failed firm and her quiet life. But something else was happening in her chest. Something that felt dangerously like understanding. You're a mirror, she said slowly. The Kim family built their fortune on construction. But they cut corners, paid bribes, destroyed competitors. You just made that rot visible. Turned it into leverage. Exactly. Sang-woo stepped closer. June thinks he's clean because he uses lawyers and contracts. But he's just as corrupt. He's just better at hiding it. I don't hide. I collect. And me? Carolyn's voice was steadier than she felt. What am I in this equation? You're the only clean thing in my world. His hand found her face, thumb tracing her cheekbone. You build structures that help people. You design with integrity. You're everything I'm not. Then why do I feel like I'm becoming something darker? Because revenge isn't clean. Sang-woo's eyes held hers. And you're smart enough to know that destroying June requires getting your hands dirty. Not with violence, but with strategy. Manipulation. Using his own corruption against him. Carolyn's breath shuddered. This was the moment. The choice. She could walk away right now, go back to struggling alone, maintain her moral high ground, or she could accept that sometimes good people partnered with dangerous ones to burn down systems that protected evil. I'm scared, she whispered. Of me? Of how much I'm not scared of you. She looked at the bulletproof windows, the filtered vents, the fortress disguised as luxury. 3 weeks ago, this would have sent me running. Now I feel safer here than I've ever felt anywhere. That's not weakness, Carolyn. That's wisdom. Sang-woo pulled her close. You're recognizing that the world isn't divided into good and evil. It's divided into people who hide what they are and people who own it. What are you? A monster who protects the people he loves. He kissed her forehead. What are you? Carolyn thought about June's casual cruelty. About the permits he'd blocked. About 3 years of being made to feel small. About the woman she'd been before, polite, accommodating, waiting for permission. The restaurant existed in that rare air where reservations were currency and silence was enforced by the weight of old money. Carolyn felt every eye track their entrance. Sang-woo's hand rested at the small of her back, warm through the emerald silk of the dress that had appeared in her closet that morning with a note. Wear this. Trust me. She'd chosen it herself from a curated selection, floor-length, backless, the kind of green that made her skin glow under candlelight. The obsidian ring caught light with each step. They looked like power incarnate. The maître de led them to a corner table with sightlines to every entrance. Sang-woo pulled out her chair, his fingers grazing her bare shoulders, and Carolyn suppressed a shiver. "You're enjoying this," she murmured. "I'm enjoying you." His eyes held hers. "There's a difference." Wine arrived, something old and French. Sang-woo tasted it, approved it, watched her over the rim as she took her first sip. Rich, dark, complex enough to make her wonder if she'd been drinking grape juice her entire life. "It suits you," he said. "The dress, the ring, this life. I've been wearing it for a month, and already you wear it better than anyone born to it." He set down his glass. "You were never meant to be in June's shadow, Carolyn. You were meant to cast your own." Movement caught her eye. June approached with Melissa on his arm, blonde, delicate, cream lace, and breeding. But behind them, something more interesting. Chairman Kim himself, seated 3 tables away, watching them with the focus of a man studying chess pieces. "Uncle." June's smile was razor thin. "I didn't know you frequented establishments like this." Sang-woo didn't stand. "Nephew." Still pretending to be relevant, I see. Melissa's mouth formed a small O. June's jaw tightened. "And Carolyn." June's gaze raked over her. "That's quite the costume. Playing dress-up now?" The words should have cut. A month ago, they would have. But Carolyn had spent 4 weeks learning to read balance sheets, memorizing June's property portfolio, sleeping next to a man who whispered strategy in his sleep. "It's called having taste, June." She took another sip of wine. "You should try it sometime." June flushed red. "You think you've won something? He's using you, just like you did." Carolyn's voice was steady, almost kind. "Difference is, I'm getting something real out of this arrangement. Buildings with my name on them, permits that actually get approved. Respect from people who matter." She smiled. "What did I get from you? 3 years of corrections and condescension?" June tried to respond, but Sang-woo stood then. Not violently, not loudly. He simply rose, and the atmosphere shifted. "You traded a diamond for a rhinestone, nephew." His voice was soft, conversational. "And now you're holding chipped glass, wondering why your hands are bleeding. She's the woman who will design the buildings your children will wish they could afford." Sang-woo stepped into June's space. "She's the mind that will find every flaw in your crumbling empire. And she's mine in ways you never earned and never deserved." June tried to hold ground. Failed. "Father won't let you." "Your father," Sang-woo said quietly, "is sitting 3 tables away, watching you embarrass yourself." Again, June's head whipped around. Chairman Kim raised his wine glass in a small salute, his expression unreadable. June stumbled backward, Melissa steadying him, and they retreated to their own table like wounded animals seeking shelter. Sang-woo returned to his seat. "Shall we order?" Carolyn's pulse was racing, her skin electric. "What is your brother doing here?" "Watching, assessing, deciding which of his sons is worth his empire." Sang-woo's smile was dark. "I told you this was a war, Carolyn. Every battle happens in public." The rest of dinner passed in charged silence. Carolyn tasted nothing, aware only of Sang-woo's eyes on her, the way he watched her mouth when she spoke, the heat building between them. The car ride home was worse. Rain started, soft at first, then building. They sat in the back seat, separated by 12 inches that felt like miles and millimeters. "You were magnificent tonight," Sang-woo said. "I didn't do anything. You sat beside me and let the world see exactly what June lost." His hand found hers in the darkness, thumb tracing the edge of her ring. "That's not nothing." The touch was electric. Carolyn turned to find him already looking at her, his face half-shadowed, eyes bottomless. The space between them evaporated. She didn't know who moved first, maybe both. Maybe gravity, maybe the inevitable conclusion of 4 weeks of coiled tension. His hand cupped her jaw. Her fingers twisted in his shirt. Their mouths were an inch apart, half an inch, close enough to share breath. And Sang-woo stopped. "Not yet," he whispered against her lips. Carolyn's eyes flew open. "What?" "When we cross this line, I want you to be the one who asks." His thumb traced her bottom lip. "I want you to beg me for it, Carolyn. No contract, no revenge, just want." He pulled back, settled into his corner, and smiled at her shock. "I can wait," he said. Carolyn was learning that she couldn't. The blueprints spread across the living room floor at 2 a.m. looked like a paper city. Carolyn sat cross-legged in pajamas, eyes burning from hours of analysis. The Hainel Tower, June's crown jewel, 50 stories of glass and steel and hubris. Somewhere in these plans was a flaw. There had to be. Footsteps. Sang-woo emerged from the hallway in sleep pants and a t-shirt, carrying a steaming mug, ginger and honey. You're still working. I'm close. She accepted the mug, their fingers brushing. Perfect temperature. He'd been paying attention. How did you know I was awake? I always know when you're awake. He settled across from her. You changed the air in the room. The intimacy made her chest tighten. She focused on the blueprints. Tell me what you're seeing, Sang-woo said. Carolyn traced the foundation diagram. June used a hybrid foundation system, deep pilings on the west where bedrock is stable, but switched to a matte foundation on the east to save money. Is that unusual? It's idiotic. She pulled over the geological survey. The east sector sits on fill material old riverbed covered in the 1890s. It's unstable. The groundwater level fluctuates seasonally. In spring, that matte foundation will settle unevenly. Sang-woo leaned in. Meaning? The building will tilt. Not catastrophically, not immediately, but over 5 years, the east side will sink 3, maybe 4 inches. The glass curtain wall will crack. Water infiltration. Structural stress. And Jun's using pre-stressed concrete beams that can't handle differential settlement. Can you prove it? The geological survey is public record. Any structural engineer would see it if they looked closely enough. She smiled, cold and satisfied. You could file a building code complaint, force an independent review, halt construction, or, Sang-woo's eyes gleamed. Carolyn's mind was already racing. Or, we buy the land underneath. The Riverside Land Trust owns the property. It's a shell corporation that leases to Kim Corp. If we acquired majority shares in the trust, we could terminate the lease, force June to either buy the land at whatever price we set, or abandon the project entirely. How long would that take? Commercial real estate? 90 days minimum for proper due diligence and escrow. She met his eyes. But if we started now, we'd close just before the board vote. Sang-woo was quiet, studying her with intensity that made her skin warm. You're brilliant. I'm thorough. You're magnificent. He reached across the blueprints, his hand finding the back of her neck, fingers threading through her hair. His thumb settled against her pulse. You build structures to protect people. I dismantle them to protect what's mine. Together, we are unstoppable. Carolyn's breath caught. This close, she could see gold flecks in his dark eyes, feel the heat radiating from him. Is that what this is? Her voice came out softer than intended. Dismantling. This is war. His thumb traced slow circles. But what we're building, that's something else entirely. She should pull away, should maintain distance, should remember that this was a contract, a transaction, a business arrangement. But his touch was gentle, and she was tired of being careful. Her phone buzzed. She ignored it. It buzzed again, then again. Sang-woo's hand dropped. He checked his own phone. Frowned. It's your lawyer. At 2 a.m., Carolyn grabbed her phone, saw 6 missed calls, 3 voicemails. Her stomach dropped. The first voicemail was brief. Miss Ross, we need to talk about the Brooklyn Commons permits. Call me immediately. The second, Carolyn, this is urgent. June's filed an injunction claiming intellectual property theft. He's saying the Brooklyn Commons design is based on work he commissioned during your relationship. The third made her blood run cold. They're freezing your accounts pending litigation. Call me. Carolyn played them on speaker. Sang-woo listened, his expression hardening with each word. He's trying to destroy me before I can even rebuild, she whispered. No. Sang-woo stood, pulling out his own phone. He's trying to scare you into surrender. It won't work. My accounts are frozen. My permits are blocked. Again. I can't fight this without capital? Sang-woo was already typing. Consider it handled. By morning you'll have unrestricted access to a business account in your name. $50 million. Use it. Carolyn stared. That's not we agreed on funding the firm, not. Did you think I was going to let you fight with one hand tied behind your back? He cupped her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. You're my wife, my partner, my weapon, and I arm my weapons properly. This is too much. This is war. His smile was cold. And in war, Carolyn, you don't count the cost of ammunition. You count the bodies. Something shifted in her chest. Not love, not yet, but recognition, trust, the knowledge that this man would burn the world to protect her. Start the land acquisition, she said, quietly. Use shell corporations. I don't want June knowing until it's too late. Sang-woo's smile widened. Already in motion, I had my team draft the purchase agreement 2 weeks ago. Carolyn's eyes widened. You knew I'd find this? I knew you were brilliant enough to find something. He pulled her to her feet, close enough that she could feel his heartbeat. I just didn't know it would be this perfect. The blueprints lay scattered between them, evidence of June's structural arrogance. The flaw that would bring everything down. He made a mistake, Carolyn said. What's that? He reminded me that I'm an architect. She met Sang-woo's eyes. And architects know exactly where to place the charges when it's time for controlled demolition. The call came at noon. Carolyn was in her new office, real location, her name on the lease and the door. She'd spent the morning reviewing contracts for Brooklyn Commons, finally moving forward after years of obstruction. Unknown number. Carolyn Ross. Still using your maiden name? June's voice slithered through. I thought married women took their husband's name. Her hand tightened. What do you want? To save you from yourself. Background noise, traffic, voices. Somewhere public. You made a mistake. Marrying my uncle. Embarrassing me. Playing architect. I'm hanging up. Remember when you helped me review the Riverside Project financials? When you had access to my company accounts? Ice flooded her veins. She'd helped him once, early on, reviewing budget documents because he'd said he valued her input. She'd been flattered. Stupid. I never touched your accounts. That's not what these documents say. His laugh was cruel. Bank records showing wire transfers from my corporate account to your personal checking. $300,000 over 6 months. Embezzlement. Wire fraud. Federal crimes. The office lights seemed too bright. That's impossible. I have your signature on authorization forms. Your IP address on transaction logs. Your fingerprints on my financial records. He paused. I'm very good at building narratives, Carolyn. You should know that by now. This is blackmail. This is a courtesy call. Ice clinked. Drop the Brooklyn Commons lawsuit. Tell Sang-woo to back off. Apologize publicly. Do that, and these documents disappear. Stay with him, and you spend 10 years in federal prison explaining to your cellmate why you stole from your boyfriend. Fear tasted metallic. She'd built this firm from nothing. Fought for every permit, every client, every inch of respect. I need time. 72 hours. June's voice softened, became almost gentle. I don't want to hurt you. Just admit you made a mistake and come home. Home. As if his world had ever been anything but a prison. The line went dead. Carolyn sat in her beautiful office and stared at the skyline while her world collapsed. June was thorough. If he said he had documents, he had documents. She drove back to the penthouse in a daze. Sang-woo was in the living room, phone pressed to ear, speaking Korean. He ended the call when he saw her face. What happened? She told him everything. The blackmail. The falsified documents. The federal prison threat. Her voice stayed level, the only way to get through it without breaking. When she finished, Sang-woo went very still. The kind of stillness that preceded storms. He's giving you 72 hours. Yes. To come back to him. Yes. His jaw tightened. The charming facade cracked. Something darker bleeding through. He threatens my wife with paper? Then I'll erase his ink. Sang-woo. How many copies? I don't know. Backups. Multiple servers. Then I'll find every server, every backup, every hard drive. He moved to his study, pulling up files. And I'll make sure he understands what happens to men who threaten what belongs to me. Don't we can fight this legally. That takes time you don't have. He turned to her, and for the first time, she saw something in his eyes that made her pulse spike. Not anger, calculation. The cold mathematics of someone who'd done this before. I told you I dismantle people. Did you think I meant it metaphorically? Carolyn's throat tightened. What are you going to do? He pulled up files on his screen. Bank records, offshore accounts, tax evasion, bribery. A decade of financial crimes, meticulously documented. I've been building this for 3 years, he said quietly. Since the first time June blocked your permits. Since the first time he made you feel small. He looked at her, and his eyes were empty of everything except purpose. I've been waiting for him to make this exact mistake. Carolyn stared at the screen. You've been planning this since before we even met. I've been planning this since I realized my nephew was a coward who broke brilliant women to feel powerful. His voice softened fractionally. And then I met you, and planning became personal. She should have felt relieved, should have felt grateful. Instead, she felt cold. You wanted him to do this, she whispered. You wanted him to come after me so you'd have justification. Sang-woo's silence was answer enough. Did you Her voice cracked. Did you manipulate this entire situation? The marriage, the permits, everything? Was it all just to get leverage on June? No. He crossed to her, but she stepped back. His hand dropped. The marriage started as strategy. But you, Carolyn, you became real. You became everything. How do I know that's true? Her eyes burned. How do I know I'm not just another piece on your chessboard? Because, he said quietly, if you were just a piece, I would have sacrificed you already. That's how chess works. You protect the queen because losing her loses the game. He pulled out his phone, showed her a video file. June, sitting in what looked like a parking garage, hands shaking as he read through documents. Sang-woo's voice, calm and measured, explaining exactly what would happen if the blackmail materials surfaced. No threats, no violence, just cold recitation of consequences. June's face in the video was gray, terrified. I'll give you everything, the documents, the backups, everything. I know you will, Sang-woo's voice said. Because you're a survivor, June. And survivors know when they've lost. The video ended. This was recorded 2 hours ago, Sang-woo said. I went to him the moment you told me. I retrieved every copy, every backup. He handed her a thumb drive. These are yours. Do with them what you want, burn them, keep them as insurance, I don't care. Carolyn took the drive with shaking hands. You didn't hurt him. I didn't need to. I had something better than violence. He didn't move closer, giving her space. I had truth, and truth is a weapon that doesn't require me to become a monster. But you would have, she whispered. If truth hadn't worked, you would have become exactly what he accused you of being. Sang-woo didn't deny it. Yes, the honesty was devastating. Carolyn couldn't finish. Needed what? Space? Time? Certainty that the man she was falling for wasn't just a more sophisticated version of the man she'd escaped? I'll sleep in the guest room tonight, Sang-woo said. Take the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. He left her standing there with a thumb drive full of evidence and a heart full of questions. Carolyn sat on the floor of their bedroom and opened her laptop, plugged in the drive, looked at the files June had created to destroy her. They were meticulous, professional, almost believable, and Sang-woo had retrieved them without laying a finger on anyone. She thought about the bulletproof windows, the biofilters, the fortress he'd built not just to protect himself, but to protect her. She thought about the permits that had mysteriously started getting approved, the capital that appeared exactly when she needed it, the way he'd handed her weapons instead of apologies. He'd given her the tools to destroy June herself, trusted her to be ruthless, saw her as a queen instead of a pawn, but he'd also been 3 steps ahead the entire time, planning, calculating, building a case against his own nephew for 3 years, waiting for the perfect moment to deploy it. Was that love? Or was that strategy? Maybe, Carolyn thought, it was both. She was an architect. She understood that the strongest structures required both rigid steel and flexible joints, required both light and shadow, required both beauty and brutal practicality. Maybe relationships were the same. She found Sang-woo in the guest room, sitting in the dark, staring at the city. I'm not afraid of who you are, she said from the doorway. I'm afraid of becoming someone who accepts too much darkness in the name of winning. He turned. Then tell me where the line is, Carolyn. Tell me what you can live with, and I'll never cross it. Can you promise that? No. His honesty was brutal, but I can promise I'll try. And I can promise that everything I do, every dark thing, every calculated move, it's in service of protecting what we're building, not just destroying what we're leaving behind. Carolyn looked at the man who'd saved her and manipulated her and loved her all at once. Come back to bed, she said finally. But Sang-woo? Next time something like this happens, you tell me the plan before you execute it. We do this together, or we don't do it at all. His smile was small, genuine. Together. She was learning that love and strategy weren't opposites. They were 2 sides of the same dangerous coin, and she was willing to spend it. The storm hit at 8 p.m. Carolyn had found the library, a hidden room accessible through a bookshelf panel, lined with first editions and leather that smelled of time. She'd built a fire, needing light, warmth, something to hold back the darkness. The elevator chimed at 9. Footsteps on stairs. Sang-woo emerged looking exactly as he'd left, no dishevelment, no marks, no signs of confrontation, but he radiated dangerous satisfaction. In his hand, a manila folder and a thumb drive. You shouldn't be down here, he said. I told you to stay in the bedroom. I couldn't sit still. Neither could June. He crossed to the fireplace, flames painting shadows. After I showed him what I had, Carolyn stood. Did you retrieve the blackmail documents? Yes. He held up the folder and drive. Every copy, every backup, every piece of evidence he manufactured. How? Sang-woo's smile was cold. I showed him proof of his tax evasion. 15 million in unreported income over 5 years. Then I explained that the IRS has a whistleblower program that pays 30% of recovered funds. He set the folder down. June did the math. Surrendering your blackmail material was significantly cheaper than prison and bankruptcy. You blackmailed him back. I reminded him that glass houses are poor places to throw stones. He crossed to her, and that I have significantly more ammunition than he ever dreamed of. Carolyn opened the folder with shaking hands. Bank statements, transaction logs, authorization forms, all with her forged signature, all capable of destroying her life. Until now, June won't come after you again, Sang-woo said. Not with this. Not with anything. Because he knows that every move he makes, I'm 3 steps ahead with evidence that could end him. What did you do to make him cooperate? I showed him the alternative. He turned to face her fully. I explained that there are 2 types of power in this world, the power to build and the power to destroy. He spent his life building on sand. I've spent mine learning where to dig until foundations crumble. Carolyn should have been horrified. Should have demanded details. Insisted on knowing exactly what leverage he'd applied. But all she felt was awe. This man had walked into whatever hell June had prepared and emerged with her salvation in a folder. Not through violence, through knowledge, strategy, the patient accumulation of truth used like a scalpel. The folder slipped from her hands. She crossed to him, her bare feet silent on stone. You're dangerous, Sang-woo. He didn't deny it, only to those who threaten what's mine. And what's yours? His eyes darkened. You are, Carolyn. Every brilliant, stubborn, magnificent inch of you. She kissed him, not tentative, not testing. She kissed him with 2 months of rage and grief and hunger, with the fury of a woman who'd been underestimated and finally had someone who saw her completely. Sang-woo responded like a man starving. His hands found her waist, lifted her, pressed her against the bookshelf with enough force to rattle ancient spines. The kiss deepened, possessive and raw, tasting of reclaimed power and promises written in fire. I should be afraid of you, Carolyn whispered against his mouth. You should be. His teeth grazed her lip. But you're not. No. She pulled him closer, needing the solid weight of him. I'm not. They kissed until the fire burned low, until the storm outside gentled, until the space between them evaporated into heat and hunger, and something that felt dangerously like trust. When they finally pulled apart, Carolyn's lips were swollen, her carefully maintained walls in ruins. Sang-woo pressed his forehead to hers, breathing hard. If we do this, if we cross this line, there's no going back. I know. I won't be gentle. I don't want you to be. His laugh was dark, delighted. Dangerous woman. You made me this way. No. He kissed her again, softer. I just gave you permission to be what you always were. They moved upstairs together. The folder of blackmail material left beside the fire. Tomorrow, they would burn it. Tonight, they had other priorities. The morning arrived with cruel efficiency. Carolyn woke tangled in silk sheets in Sang-woo's arms, her body deliciously sore in ways that made her blush. He was already awake, reading something on his phone, his free hand absently stroking her shoulder. What is it? She asked, voice rough from sleep and other activities. He handed her the phone without speaking. The email was from Chairman Kim. Formal, elegant, deadly. You are cordially invited to the Kim Legacy Gala. Black tie, no exceptions. Both of you are expected to attend. The board will vote on the chairmanship that evening. I trust you'll make the appropriate impression. It's a trap, Carolyn said. Obviously. He's going to try to destroy you publicly. Probably has the board votes lined up. Probably. Sang-woo took the phone back. Which is why we're going to walk in there and show him exactly what we've built. Carolyn thought about the Hainel Tower blueprints, about the land acquisition closing in 2 weeks perfectly timed to coincide with the gala, about the blackmail documents now neutralized, about the man beside her who'd become her weapon, her shield, her partner. When do we leave? She asked. The gala is in 2 weeks. Same day the Riverside Land Trust acquisition closes. Sang-woo's eyes gleamed. And Carolyn? Yes. Wear something that makes them remember you're a queen. She smiled, dark and satisfied. I'm an architect, Sang-woo. I know how to make an entrance. The Kim Legacy Gala transformed the estate gardens into something from a fever dream. Crystal chandeliers hung from trees like captured stars. String quartet music floated through the cold November air. Cameras flashed like lightning, capturing New York's elite in their natural habitat, predatory, beautiful, utterly merciless. Carolyn wore midnight blue velvet that clung to her like water, the obsidian ring catching light with every movement. Diamond earrings. Sang-woo had presented that afternoon not a gift, he'd said, but armor. Her hair was swept up in an elaborate style that showcased the graceful line of her neck, the strength in her shoulders. They entered together, and the crowd parted. Chairman Kim stood near the fountain, surrounded by board members. June was at his father's elbow, looking smug in his tuxedo, Melissa draped on his arm. But something was different tonight. June kept glancing at his phone, his confidence touched by the faintest edge of nervousness. Good. Ready? Sang-woo murmured. Born ready. An hour into the gala, Carolyn excused herself to the garden's edge. The string quartet shifted to something darker. Minor key. She was checking her own phone, waiting for the message from her attorney when footsteps crunched on gravel. Enjoying the party? June's voice made her skin crawl. Last one you'll attend, I imagine. Carolyn turned slowly. June stood flanked by two associates, corporate lawyers by the look of them, not security. The garden path behind them was empty. Your blackmail failed, she said calmly. Did it? June's smile was venomous. Or did my uncle just buy you a temporary reprieve? Because tonight, Father is announcing my chairmanship. The board votes in 20 minutes, and I've already secured the majority. He stepped closer, emboldened by his perceived victory. See, the thing about my uncle is that he's brilliant at destruction, but he never learned how to build consensus, how to make people love you. June's voice dripped with false sympathy. The board respects fear, but they vote for charm. And I am very, very charming. Is that what you think this is about? Carolyn's smile was cold. Board votes? What else would it be? Her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. The message she'd been waiting for. Acquisition complete. Deed recorded. Land trust is yours. Carolyn looked up at June, and her smile widened. You're right about one thing. This is my last Kim family gala. She slipped her phone into her clutch. Because after tonight there won't be a Kim corporation for me to attend events for. June's confidence faltered. What are you talking about? The Riverside Land Trust. The property underneath the Hunwell Tower. She watched his face drain of color. As of 3 minutes ago, I own it. Majority shares, controlling interest. Complete authority over the lease. That's impossible. That land was owned by a shell corporation that your father set up in the 1990s. He diversified the shares to minority investors over the years to reduce tax liability. Very smart. Carolyn's voice was clinical, professional. Unfortunately, those minority investors were willing to sell. To me, through a series of holding companies that took exactly 90 days to acquire and consolidate. June's hands were shaking. You can't, the lease is ironclad. The lease has a clause allowing termination if the property owner determines the structure poses environmental or safety risks. She pulled a document from her clutch. She'd been carrying it all night, waiting for this moment. I had an independent structural engineer review your foundation plans. His report concludes that the East Sector mat foundation is inadequate for soil conditions and will result in differential settlement exceeding code allowances. That's a lie. It's a fact. One that's now filed with the city building department. Carolyn handed him the document. As of this morning, the Hunwell Tower is under stop work order pending remediation. Estimated cost to fix the foundation? $80 million. Timeline? 18 months. During which you'll be paying lease fees on land you can't use, for a building you can't complete. June stared at the document, his face cycling through rage, fear, disbelief. Father will. Your father, said a voice behind them, is impressed. They both turned. Chairman Kim stood at the garden entrance, hands clasped behind his back, expression unreadable. Carolyn, he said, inclining his head with something that might have been respect. That was elegant. June found his voice. Father, you can't let her. Let her? Chairman Kim's laugh was soft, dangerous. She didn't ask permission, June. That's the difference between you and her. You've spent your entire life waiting for me to hand you power. She took it. He walked forward, studying Carolyn with new interest. The land acquisition was brilliant. Using the structural flaw as leverage was even better. You didn't just attack June's project, you did it legally, ethically, and in a way that makes you look like a concerned citizen protecting public safety." He smiled. "I raised Jun to be ruthless, but you, my dear, are something far more dangerous. You're competent." "I'm an architect," Carolyn said. "I solve problems." "Indeed." Chairman Kim turned to June. "You blocked her permits out of spite. You blackmailed her out of fear. You tried to destroy her out of jealousy. And in doing so, you handed my brother the perfect weapon." "Brother, this is insane, the board." "The board," Chairman Kim said quietly, "votes in 10 minutes. And I'm very curious to see what happens." He walked back toward the party, leaving June standing in the garden, clutching the stop work order like a death sentence. Carolyn felt Sang-woo's presence before she saw him, his hand settling on her lower back. "Nicely done," he murmured. "I learned from the best." They walked back to the party together, leaving June in the darkness. The stage awaited. Board members clustered near it, champagne in hand, expecting June's coronation. They were about to witness something else entirely. Chairman Kim took the stage first, the crowd hushing instantly. "Thank you all for attending tonight's gala. As you know, I'm stepping down as chairman of Kim Corporation after 40 years. He paused, letting that sink in. "The board will now vote on my successor. We have 2 candidates. My son, June, and my brother, Sang-woo." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. This was supposed to be a formality. Everyone knew June was the heir. "However," Chairman Kim continued, "before we vote, I believe both candidates should address the board. June, would you like to begin?" June climbed the stage, his confidence visibly crumbling. He approached the microphone, opened his mouth, closed it. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, probably seeing the news alerts about the Hainel Tower stop work order hitting the financial press. June's voice cracked. "I believe in the future of Kim Corporation. I believe in growth, in expansion, in structures built on unstable foundations," Carolyn's voice carried across the garden. She hadn't moved from her position beside Sang-woo, but every eye turned to her. "Forgive me for interrupting, June, but I think the board should know that your flagship project, the Hainel Tower, is currently under stop work order for foundation defects that will cost $80 million to remediate." The crowd erupted. Board members pulled out phones, confirming. June's face went from pale to gray. "Furthermore," Carolyn continued, her voice cutting through the chaos, "I should disclose that I now own the land underneath that project, and I'm terminating the lease effective immediately, unless Kim Corporation agrees to full remediation at their expense, plus retroactive lease payments to cover the period of construction delay." A board member stood. That's extortion. "That's contract law," Carolyn said calmly. "The lease terms are clear. I'm simply exercising my rights as landowner." Chairman Kim was smiling, actually smiling. Sang-woo stepped forward. "If I may address the board." He climbed the stage, and his presence commanded instant silence. "My nephew represents the old way of doing business. Shortcuts. Corner cutting. Hoping no one notices until it's too late." He gestured to June. "That approach worked when information was scarce and accountability was optional. But we live in a different world now." He pulled out a tablet, displayed something on the screens behind him. "These are the structural reports for every Kim Corporation property built in the last 5 years under June's supervision. My wife Carolyn Ross, one of the finest architects in New York, has reviewed them all. 3 have foundation issues, 5 have code violations, 2 are currently being investigated for permit fraud." The board was silent, staring at the data. "I'm not asking you to choose me because I'm family," Sang-woo said. "I'm asking you to choose competence over legacy. Choose someone who builds correctly the first time. Choose someone who understands that sustainable success requires intelligence, not shortcuts." He stepped back. "The choice is yours." The vote was called. Electronic, anonymous, binding. The results appeared on screen 3 minutes later. Sang-woo-yoon, 87%, Kim Jun, 13%. It wasn't even close. June stood on the stage, watching his inheritance evaporate, and for the first time in his life, he had no one to blame but himself. Carolyn felt Sang-woo's hand find hers, their fingers interlacing. They didn't need to speak. The moment said everything. Chairman Kim approached them as the crowd processed the results. "Congratulations, brother. You've earned this." "I had help," Sang-woo said, glancing at Carolyn. "Indeed." Chairman Kim studied her. "Carolyn, I owe you an apology. I dismissed you when June first brought you around. I saw you as he saw you, a pretty accessory. I was wrong." "Yes," Carolyn said simply. "You were." He laughed, genuine and surprised. "I like her, Sang-woo. Don't let this one go. I don't intend to. They left shortly after, the party continuing behind them in shocked whispers and recalibrated alliances. The car, a Maybach that smelled of leather and victory, carried them away through streets that suddenly felt smaller, conquered. Sang-woo pulled out a ring box, different from the obsidian. A diamond that caught light like captured fire, emerald cut, flawless, set in platinum with smaller stones forming an architectural pattern. It looked like a building, like a skyline. This ring, he touched the obsidian on her finger, was for show, for the board. He opened the box. This ring is for you, for us, for the empire we're going to build together. Sang-woo, marry me again. For real this time. No contracts, no revenge. Just two people who found each other in the wreckage and decided to build something beautiful. Carolyn looked at the ring, at the man offering it, at the life spreading before her like a blueprint waiting to be realized. Yes, but I'm keeping the obsidian ring too. His laugh was surprised, delighted. Why? Because it reminds me who I was when I chose revenge. I never want to forget that woman. She was magnificent. She held out her right hand. Diamond on the left, obsidian on the right. One for love, one for power. He slid the diamond onto her finger. Perfect fit. I love you, he said simply. I love your brilliance, your rage, your refusal to be small. I love every sharp edge and soft moment. I love you too, Carolyn whispered. I love that you gave me weapons instead of apologies. I love that you see me as a queen. They kissed, and it tasted like victory and promise, and the beginning of something that would outlast empires. 6 months later, Carolyn stood in the penthouse suite of the Seoul Kim Corporation headquarters, watching the city sprawl beneath her like a living circuit board. 42 floors up, bulletproof windows, the same careful architecture as the New York fortress. But this time, she'd helped design the security features. The Seoul expansion had been brutal and beautiful. 3 months of 18-hour days, navigating Korean business culture, learning the language through immersion and necessity. She'd presented to the Korean board in halting but determined Korean, showing them the future of Kim Corporation's architectural division. They'd been skeptical at first. An American, a black woman, an outsider married to the exile who'd somehow become chairman. Then she'd shown them the Gangnam Tower proposal. 60 stories of sustainable architecture that would make the Hanul Tower look like a child's toy. Living walls, geothermal systems, a foundation engineered for Seoul's specific seismic requirements, residential, commercial, and community space woven together in a design that honored Korean architectural philosophy while pushing into the future. The board had approved it unanimously. Construction started next month. Her name would be on the building. Carolyn Ross, lead architect. No hiding, no diminishing. You're thinking too loud, Sang-woo said from the doorway. He'd been at the office, finalizing contracts with the Singapore partners. The expansion was happening faster than anyone expected. Tokyo wanted in. Hong Kong was calling. Mumbai had sent inquiries. Kim Corporation was becoming what it should have been all along, a global force built on competence instead of corners cut. I was thinking about June, Carolyn admitted. Sang-woo crossed to her, wrapped his arms around her waist from behind, chin resting on her shoulder. What about him? Melissa sent me a message. He's working for a mid-tier development company in New Jersey. Residential housing. Nothing special. No projects over 20 stories. Good. Is it? Carolyn turned in his arms. We destroyed him, Sang-woo. Completely. Sometimes I wonder if we went too far. He destroyed himself, Sang-woo said firmly. We just made sure everyone could see it. And Carolyn, he's not in prison. He's not bankrupt. He's working, living. That's more mercy than he deserved. She knew he was right. But there was something bittersweet about total victory. Something that tasted like ash mixed with champagne. Melissa also said he asks about me sometimes, Carolyn continued. Asks if I'm happy. Are you? Sang-woo's eyes searched hers. Happy? Carolyn looked around the penthouse. At the city below. At the architectural models of the 5 projects she was overseeing across 3 continents. At the man who'd given her weapons and trust and love in equal measure. I'm terrified, she said honestly. I'm exhausted. I'm working harder than I've ever worked in my life. And yes, I'm happy. Deliriously, impossibly happy. Good. He kissed her forehead. Because I have news. What kind of news? The kind that involves a private architectural commission. A personal project. Sang-woo pulled out blueprints, actual paper, hand-drawn in his careful script. I want you to design us a house." Carolyn unrolled the plans. A plot of land outside Seoul, 3 acres, mountain views, complete creative freedom. "Not a fortress," he said quietly. "Not a penthouse bunker. A home, with windows that aren't bulletproof, with gardens and space and rooms for—" He paused. "For whatever future we decide to build. Rooms for children," he meant. Rooms for a life that wasn't warfare and revenge. Rooms for the soft moments between the sharp edges. "Sang-woo, I know we haven't talked about it. I know we're busy. But Carolyn, I don't want to spend my whole life dismantling empires. I want to build something that's just ours. Something small and perfect and safe." She looked at the blueprints, already seeing the house taking shape in her mind. Sustainable materials, natural light, space that breathed instead of defended, a foundation built on bedrock instead of fear. "I'll design it," she said. "On one condition. Anything. We invite June to the housewarming." Sang-woo pulled back, surprised. "Why?" "Because I want him to see what he could have had if he'd just seen me as a partner instead of a possession." Carolyn rolled up the blueprints. "I want him to see us happy. Building, creating, living. I want him to know that he didn't break me. He just freed me to become something he could never imagine." Sang-woo studied her face, then smiled. "You're crueler than I am. I learned from the best." They stood at the window, watching Seoul light up as night fell. Somewhere in New Jersey, June was probably finishing a day of work on forgettable projects. Somewhere in New York, Brooklyn Commons was open, serving the community Carolyn had always envisioned. Somewhere in Tokyo, contractors were bidding on her latest design. And here, in Seoul, Carolyn Ross, architect, wife, weapon, queen, was exactly where she was meant to be. The obsidian ring caught the light on her right hand. The diamond sparkled on her left. Power and love, strategy and surrender. The woman she'd been and the woman she was becoming. Both. Always both. "Come to bed," Sang-woo murmured. "Tomorrow we're flying to Singapore, then Tokyo, then back to New York for the Brooklyn Commons anniversary celebration. And then we build our house, start our life, maybe even slow down enough to remember why we started this in the first place." Carolyn let him lead her to the bedroom, the city lights painting patterns on the walls, the future spreading before them like blueprints waiting to be realized. She'd started this journey broken, discarded, desperate for revenge. She was ending it whole, chosen, building an empire. The strongest foundations aren't built on perfection. They're built on understanding that every structure needs both light and shadow to stand the test of time. Never let anyone convince you that your sharp edges need smoothing. Sometimes, those edges are what make you capable of cutting through everything that tries to contain you. Build yourself into something so magnificent that those who underestimated you spend the rest of their lives watching your skyline rise. If you loved watching Carolyn transform from discarded girlfriend to unstoppable empress, drop a comment with your favorite moment. Was it the land acquisition? The 0-vote humiliation? Melissa's betrayal? And if you want more dark romance where women don't just survive, they build empires on the ashes of those who underestimated them, hit follow. Remember, the best revenge isn't living well. It's designing the blueprint for your enemy's destruction and watching them crumble with architectural precision. Now go build your empire.